Hello and welcome to episode 80 of our World Telemedia vodcast. I'm Paul Skeldon, the editor-in-chief at large, etc. at World Telemedia. Do all the website news and the magazine and some of the conference content, etc. And usually I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Jarvis Todd. Today, however, we're joined by our head of strategy, Anzelle Robertson. I think was going to make for a much better, a much more informed podcast than you're usually used to. So, Anzelle, welcome. Lovely of you to join us. How are things with you?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for having me. All's well. I'm coming from Amsterdam today. So I have already caught up with a couple of people from the industry, and of course, there's a bit of buzz with a couple of people heading down to Cape Town next week. So happy to stand in for Jarvis today, and apologies in advance if anyone has joined in. Very excited and keen to see him and have got him instead.
I very much doubt that. But anyway, yes, it's great of you to join us from Amsterdam. And you mentioned Cape Town. We'll come to that later on in the show. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. First of all, my sort of pet subject du jour about agentic commerce and integrating sort of payments into AI and AI discovery, which I probably bored anyone who will listen to me about this, but I still think it's really important, as we will discover. Hopefully, Anzelle will agree with me, but who knows? And then we're going to take a look at some of the sort of fraud aspects that might throw up, and a really interesting initiative that has arisen in the sort of booming South African market, where WASPA, the Wireless Application Service Providers Association, the sort of de facto regulator of which you, Anzelle, are a board member,
Right?
have teamed up with MCP Insights to, I guess, make the flows much more secure, much more fraud proof, and then the sort of compliance side of it, all very necessary, particularly in this day and age as the services that we call telemedia take off and become even more sort of important, particularly in such an exploding market like South Africa. So we'll come to that. That's an interesting story that we'll talk about after we've discussed the latest developments in payments and chat GPT. So to coin Jarvis's phrase, without further ado, we shall leap right in. So the first story we're going to look at is the announcement from ChatGPT, from its parent company OpenAI, that PayPal is now working with them to be embedded as part of ChatGPT's instant checkout. Now, we talked about instant checkout a couple of weeks ago, I think, possibly a couple of podcasts ago. It's basically when you search for things via ChatGPT, so find me the best pair of sunglasses for under $100, that sort of thing. It will find them, and now you can check out and buy them via ChatGPT. PayPal now on board so that you can pay using PayPal. Um, this is sort of part of ChatGPT's move towards what's known as agentic commerce, where AI basically goes off and not only finds the right thing for you, but also buys it for you. The theory being that it will all happen without you actually, as a consumer, doing anything. You ask it to find the best, whatever, it will go and do it. Uh, Building payments into that is obviously a very big deal. PayPal getting involved in that payments thing is an even bigger deal, I think, because to me, it shows that a massive payments company that's a wallet, let's not forget, uh, really is betting on this being very successful. Now, what does that mean for telemedia? Now, as I've said several times in these podcasts, is that currently not a lot, but it will, because I think this is how people are going to find the services they want to use. A lot of attention is on Google and advertising it through Google and through social media to drive traffic to basically DCB backed services. However, more and more consumers, especially younger people, are just asking AI to find the things they want, and it will impact how they find telemedia services and how they pay for them. So I think this is actually sort of something that's important to our industry, certainly to get on board with thinking about and looking at right now. I mean, what are your thoughts,
Absolutely,
Del?
Paul. So I think when we talk about the telemedia industry, it's important to remember what really underpins it all, and that's the mobile phone, right? So, um, In something that's has no shortage of irony, I asked our friend ChatGPT to tell me the data around what percentage of searches for things that are done via ChatGPT are done via its web interface compared to via its mobile interface or its mobile applications.
Interesting.
With the view on, okay, if this is going in the mobile direction, because of course that's where telemedia services are traditionally consumed, subscribed to, paid for, and engaged with. Um, and obviously, it's only relatively recently that the whole agentic commerce, with the protocols that underpin all of that, driving it, became available. But the data that ChatGPT itself gave back was, for now, it appears that you could say only 25% of searches for things within a commerce context. So I'm not
Mm,
talking about, tell me what the meaning of life is, but tell me, show me sunglasses, for
yeah,
$100 with a tortoiseshell frame. I love a tortoiseshell frame. Anyway,
me too.
no, I said there's no more certain a signifier of class than a tortoiseshell frame. It's like an old Jaguar. Anyway,
Mm,
well, there you go. Sorry. But anyway, searches with a commerce context or chats where such a request or a question has been asked, for now are 25% roughly, depending on the sources that ChatGPT came up with, between 24 and 26% on mobile, and the other three quarters are on web. And these are
mm,
searches or interactions with something or for something where the consumer seeks to actually make a purchase at the end of it. Now, actually then completing the purchase and actually converting via that interface, interestingly enough, looks to be at this point
mm,
more towards a 90-10. So, in other words, 25% of the time when we're looking for things that we want to buy, we're doing so on mobile. But then, of the times that we're actually using agentic payments to
mm.
complete that purchase on mobile, is still only 9% of the time. Now, I had a little think about this and I tried to figure out for myself why would this be? And I think what's made DCB so popular and what's made mobile payments so popular, of course, has always been its seamlessness. The fact that it's right there at your fingertips, and the flip side to that is also because it's right there at my fingertips and it's small and I can do it on the bus. It's not the platform that I think we instinctively are going to go to when we're researching or purchasing a new washing machine or
Mm,
a hi-fi sound system, or larger investment type purchases that we're going to research a lot, that we want to compare products on. It's, yeah, I want to live stream tonight's NBA game. Cool, give me the thing. Or yes, I want some nice MMORPG games to play on the bus or whatever. Yes, then I'm all about my mobile. But for these actual type of larger purchases that for now agentic payments seem to be supporting, people do go to web. So
mm,
I think for as long as we're not yet plugging in sort of full support, if we're going to be supporting people looking for services via their mobile, then those are things that will also need to be consumed via mobile. So like
sure.
games, streaming services, etc. And of course, the moment that day rolls around, I'm going to hope that it's going to be paid for via DCP
Mm,
because again, that's tied to your MSISD and that's all you need. So it's a no-brainer. But yeah, that's what the current sort of landscape of it
mm.
looks like.
Yeah. See, I think I think that certainly from my discussions with people at World Telemedia in Marbella a month ago, there is this move towards taking card payments because a lot of consumers are shifting to using wallets to pay for these sorts of services. So I kind of looked at it the other way round in that PayPal is a wallet and has the
Yes.
convenience of a wallet, and therefore it's being built into this agentic sort of payment and search and payment model. that's sort of also moving in the same direction that we're seeing within telemedia. So I think that I don't think DCB is going to disappear. I think what's going to be interesting is how the clever people in our industry come up with ways of making DCB work with this.
Correct. And this is something that was really emphasized and put on the spotlight at Carrier Billing Summit 2 years ago. So
Mm,
Carrier Billing Summit 22, the one before this one, 2024, was the question around, yes, DCB related service providers, so content providers, payment aggregators, they compete among one another, of course, but at the same time, there's another piece of competition at play, and that's DCB as a payment method,
mm,
increasingly having to compete with other payment methods for the consumer's money or for the consumer's purchase rather.
mm,
And I'm afraid that at the end, a large part of that buck is going to stop with the MNOs because ultimately it's them that hold the power. And thank heavens there's a good number of them that are innovative, that are exploring how they can untap, and empower DCB to its full potential. But of course, collaboration will be necessary among the merchants, among the payment service providers. But I really think it's the mobile network operators that are going to
mm.
have to drive that DCB in competition with other payment methods.
I do wonder as well, though, that are carriers going to have their hand forced somewhat by organizations like OpenAI, who run ChatGPT and Perplexity and all these other, because they're becoming bigger and more powerful. Are they going to have more of a say, maybe, in how DCB is used within that sort of AI shopping
That,
framework, do you think?
that might well be, and I think there was an interesting article written by one of the columnists for the Financial Times, Matt Rogers, and if the future that he sees is one that comes true, which is one where OpenAI makes a phone,
Mm,
then that might well be the case where MNOs are being invited or told, listen, if we're going to embed in our AI hardware, our actual AI handset, a payment flow or a payment
mm.
capability, then as MNOs, the best way to be doing that would be DCB. And then there might be some, I won't call it forcing a hand, but hopefully an invitation.
Yeah, they'd be mad not to,
Yeah,
wouldn't they? I
because
mean, it's
here's the I believe it's ACP for short, but the
mm,
agentic commerce protocol, and
yeah.
this is sort of open source. This is an integration that allows you to plug, your payment methods in, and it's sitting right there, and there's hopefully going to be a marriage there.
Mm, absolutely. And I think for operators, it's an absolute gift of an opportunity to be involved in something like that from the get-go. Suddenly they can turn their sort of payment channel, which they don't, let's be frank, exploit maybe as much as they should. It could become something built in and embedded into such a device and become a de facto way of paying for things. I think it's
Absolutely.
an
Exactly.
interesting thing for them to look at, I think.
Exactly. And I think again, this is where the real power of events like the World Telemedia Suite of events, like MEF's events, like the Africa Comms of the world, are so important because what the MNOs stand to learn from one another when they share their use cases, when they share, what they're doing, is I think ultimately that would drive the whole forward.
Mm. I think so. I think that's absolutely it. I think it is going to go somewhere. I mean, you looked at sort of how much of it is done on mobile and how much of it is done on sort of desktop, for want of
Yeah.
a better word. I asked AI a different question, looking at sort of like how interested are consumers in using AI
You.
to shop for stuff,
Yeah.
and there's understandably, perhaps not surprisingly, quite a lot of research from all sorts of people, many with a sort of skin in the game, such as Adobe. But the overwhelming thing is that consumers want to use generative AI to shop. So 71% of people who were surveyed by Capgemini, for example,
Yeah.
68% of them want to be AI tools to be aggregated, sort of their shopping information from
But
search
this is
engines,
this is
social, all
this
that kind of thing.
this doesn't surprise me in the least, Paul. There's an interesting bit of I think suppose behavioral psychology in a book from a book called The Organized Mind that
Mm,
talks about how, technology evolved faster than our brains, right? Until very
mm,
recently, in the greater scheme of things, the only decisions that we needed to take, you and I, was do I leave the cave today? Yes or no? No, because it's raining. Do I eat this red berry? Yes or no? Probably no, because it's red, so it's not, safe. Yet, today, fast forward a relatively short period in the greater universal scheme of
mm.
things, we have 40 types of yogurt to choose from in the 10 supermarkets we have to choose from within a 1 mile radius of our home, of our cave. So whilst our options, and that's not even talking about technology yet, have so vastly multiplied, our ability to filter all this information to make decisions actually has not caught up from an evolutionary point of view. And I think that's why, not I think, that's what the book says, and it's written by neuroscientists, and that's why anything that actually narrows our
Mm.
our choice and that narrows our the mental input that's required from us. We still want to feel we've made an informed decision, and we still want to feel it's me that's made the decision. But yeah, income, ChatGPT saying to us, we know that this thing has looked at the sum total of all human knowledge. And if it says Tom's Ford pair of sunglasses is the best one to purchase, not that I think you would get them for under $100. And we are not in any way
Other
by
sunglasses
Tom
are
Ford.
available.
Exactly. But we can still feel we've made an informed decision.
Mm.
But we know it's off the back of all this information that we personally didn't have to sift through. And it would be very exciting to see what this is going to mean for digital content services.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a really interesting point. I think that we have reached sort of this stage where we're overwhelmed with choice and with information. You can't ever find a definitive answer. So we
Yeah,
are, this is probably why people are using AI with such alacrity because bizarrely they trust it. They seem to trust ChatGPT is going to not give them a rubbish answer
yeah.
because they can't get a good answer themselves. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of how that will reshape and reframe how people ask the internet to find the things they're looking for, particularly content. And I
Yeah.
mean, now I look at Netflix, I don't know what to watch. There's just too much.
Exactly. And you know what I would love to be, and this is a phenomenon from the past couple of years, actually five, even so, even more, is, you would spend hours browsing for something to watch, to
Mm.
ultimately only watch half an hour and then go to bed.
Yeah, yeah,
Your
absolutely.
decision-making process at some point outweighs the
Mm.
the thing that you're actually making a decision about. Now, I, for one, if this exists, I would love someone to tell me. Actually, I might try it tonight using ChatGPT, but I could tell it, well, I'm sort of feeling a coming of
Yeah.
age romantic movie, sort of set around more or less the 90s. I
Mm.
wanted to play out in Southern America, the deep South, whatever. Sort of give it the themes or the vibes, or tell it I like this, and this movie, give me something else. And there my answer goes. And
Yeah.
spot on. I'm going to trust it. I'm going to
And I
trust it.
think
I'm gonna tell them.
that's gonna drive how people find the sort of telemedia content services. Is we got like say, oh, yeah, I
Exactly.
want
And
a
I
micro drama series that's about I don't know an Arab couple who fall in love in difficult circumstances, and it will go off and find you a selection you can
quite
specify
right. And
language and region and all that sort of thing. It'll find the ones, and then this agentic sort of commerce payment idea is then you'll pay for it seamlessly too, which
you're
is
right. And I
it's
think where it will
interesting.
be particularly valuable is for the digital content merchants that have invested heavily in the live sports streaming rights.
Mm,
So we know there's a couple of stakeholders that now have the rights to distribute everything from MMA matches to tennis to basketball. We're seeing more and more of these very expensive but actual branded rights being bought up or licensed by digital content providers. Now, this is exactly the thing that I think people will be using ChatGPT for.
mm,
How can I watch tonight's Lakers versus, Lakers versus whoever game. How can I watch,
Mm,
Astros versus Mets this weekend? Where can I watch it? And that then gives me the option. So in the past, I would have had to hope that I was going to be served this Google banner, or
mm,
specifically for services like this, you would have hundreds of YouTube videos purporting to be the live
yeah.
stream that's about to start, and then going to some other thing or some lead generation thing or just capturing your data and you end up going nowhere. And I think this is where not only for the merchants, it's going to be super valuable, but for the consumers,
Mm.
not the
To-
consumers, us, for consumers.
Totally. And I think for our industry, it is something that isn't going to probably happen, immediately, but it is going to happen. I think this time next year, it will be a thing that we're talking about it in real terms with real examples from people in our community, I think.
Exactly. I agree with you fully. And reading up about, when you tasked me to go do my research, you told me, Anzelle, I'm going to be Jarvis today, you're going to be Paul. Um, Reading up about this, I mean, it's literally there. It's 2 clicks away from within OpenAI's website is a button, a call to action, request our API. Sign
Mm.
up as a merchant with instant checkout. And I would actually love to invite the first merchant to go and do that and see what the initial results look like.
Well, absolutely. Well, hopefully, if there's anyone listening to this from our sort of industry, get in touch if you've done it, or get in touch
Or are about to.
if you're
Yes.
about to try and do it, and tell us how that goes. Because one of the other things that comes out of this as well that we'll touch on sort of briefly, because it does link to our next sort of story, is this sort of embedded agentic sort of shopping and payments does throw up this whole problem with sort of fraud and chargebacks and problems, because the idea that you tell ChatGPT to go and find you the best pair of sunglasses and it just goes off and buys them. What if you don't like them? What if they don't arrive? What if your credit card gets sort of scammed by whatever merchant they've brought them from? It throws up a whole world of problems with sort of fraud and errant payments and mistakes with payments and, like I say, chargebacks for things. It's a whole thing that I don't think anyone's really looked at yet. And I think the sort of fraud side of this, well, fraud's too big and nasty a word, but the sort of problematic side of errant payments is a big deal that also needs to be
Yeah,
addressed.
you're right, Paul. And I think what happens traditionally is new payment flows, new payment methods, new payment technologies come across, and then they get sort of adopted at a large scale. And then, of course, the problems trail, right? And then
Mm,
there comes a spike in the problems related to that. And fraud is one type of problem, but there are many. And then stakeholders, MNOs, self-regulators act to address them. And then everything sort of settles down. So there's this sort of, I think, natural curve in many markets and in payment flows that looks like that. And if history has taught us anything, we can expect the whole agentic payment
mm,
environment to lead to the same thing. But a great example of where this has been dealt with very effectively, as you mentioned in the intro, is recently in South Africa.
mm. Absolutely. As I said at the sort of top of the podcast, um, that WASPA, the Wireless Application Service Providers Association in South Africa, has teamed up with MCP Insight to well, essentially build MCP's tools into sort of its own um, sort of compliance sort of regime.
Correct. So one of the things that WASPA has done extremely well for the longest time is actually employ a dedicated team of actual people that monitor the market. And 10, 15 years ago, this meant, having a big cupboard full of test mobile phones and manually,
Mm,
oh, let's test with using the 3310 today, and then downloading ringtones and seeing that the welcome message was received, whatever. So very manual. But the natural evolution of that, and given, like you said, rightfully, South Africa being a popular and advanced, mature digital content services market, means that there is a lot of services out there currently. There is a lot of services being provided. Interestingly, I was involved in a conversation with the Dutch regulator, and in the Netherlands, there's something like 6 registered digital content service providers, somewhere
Mm.
between 6 or 10. It's double digits at most, right? In South Africa, if you look at WASPA's members base, it's 200 plus companies are registered to be offering digital content services. Now imagine if each of them has only 2 services, and each of those 2 services has, maybe 5 campaigns running. Just the vast mass of stuff that's out there, that it's unfathomable that
Mm.
could be done manually. Now, WASPA using, as a self-regulator, tools or suppliers to help automate monitoring is not new. What's new off the back of this POC, and this is where I think they've been very clever, is it's not just we offering a solution to WASPA, here's our tools, use it to monitor. It is we are monitoring, or our tools are monitoring the market. If an issue gets identified, the party responsible for causing that issue, so digital merchant A, B, C, or D,
Mm.
can then themselves interact with that sort of alert or that notification. So it almost, I don't want to say cuts out WASPA completely, because they do have a visibility of all these instances and all these alerts. But what it means is it's literally halved the turnaround time required to act on instances of non-compliance. So where in the past, if whatever tool WASPA was using, whether it was an actual person testing or whether it was an automated tool, identified, Paul is running this ad is non-compliant, then WASPA needed to notify Paul. Paul needed to
Mm.
have someone, log in, change the campaign, whatever, to address it before it does any actual consumer harm or misleads a consumer, right? Because that's what this is all about. Now, that alert could be generated, it could be captured in this automated fashion, could be generated, and then in parallel, simultaneously, but importantly, immediately, both WASPA and Paul is alerted of this. So the self-regulator has eyes on it immediately, but also the responsible party. And the responsible party can then directly within that interface, within MCP's platform, take the required actions and go, okay, I've either paused it or I've this. So immediately there, both the monitoring service provider as well as WASPA at the same time have eyes on, has action been taken on this, yes or no?
Mm.
Now, as you covered in the TELEMEDIA news article, and as MCP themselves covered in their PR piece about this partnership, yes, off the back of the data that came from the proof of concept,
Mm.
which was with a handful of merchants, there was a such and such percentage reduction in severe cases of no.
95%
There
reduction
you go. Thank
in
you. That's
red issues, 64% reduction in
that's why they
medium, and
pay you the big
91%
bucks
in
for.
yeah. I have the stats to hand, but yeah, I mean that.
Exactly. So what I really wanted to point out is, yes, within the POC, those are great stats to see. What I'll be keeping tabs on, and what I look forward to seeing, both as WASPA board member, but just as, someone that has a soft spot for the market, and
Mm.
is terribly biased about South Africa, is beyond this POC, what those numbers are going to look like. Because I mean, of course, there's a case to be made. If you want to play devil's advocate, of course, the merchants involved in the POC also knew that they're part of a POC, right? So
Sure.
they're going to do their utmost best to try
And
and
it's not
limit.
looking at the whole market, is it? I mean, it'll only be a
Exactly.
select
It was
number of.
limited to those. So don't get me wrong, these are very, very promising figures, but I think really the market as a whole is now excited to see what these figures are going to look like, as this POC has now been cemented into an actual supplier relationship, and continues to be rolled out throughout the entire market. And the timing for this is very good too. If anyone would be keen on continuing this conversation or about learning more, um, uh, uh, WASPA have been asked by the Mobile Ecosystem Forum to deliver and present two sort of panel discussions or anything sort of interesting from the WASPA camp
Mm.
at Mobile Ecosystem Forum's Leadership Forum in Cape Town. This is on the 12th of November. And what WASPA decided to do is to have one of our sessions focus on the messaging ecosystem in sub-Saharan Africa. That'll be at 2:45. But just before that, at 2:15, we're actually going to have a conversation around, firstly, WASPA being around for 21 years. They just celebrated their
Well, that's right. Yes.
21st birthday. So at least I suppose in the US we can buy WASPA beer now. But on that panel we'll be joined by, among others, also Kev Dawson of MCP. So I'm sure he will be talking more about that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. That's at the Africa Tech Festival, isn't it? That what
Quite
was
right, quite right.
AfricaCom.
It's the festival previously known as AfricaCom
Yeah.
takes place from, I believe it's the 10th to the 13th of November. Mobile Monday has a networking event, and then of course MEF has their leadership forum. I will be there representing both WASPA and the World Telemedia team. So if anybody's down there and wants to meet up or catch up, they can meet me either at the MEF Leadership Forum or just ring me up and let's set up a chat.
Yeah, brilliant. Excellent. Well, that's next week, isn't it? Now that's I think yes,
Yeah, and
next week.
yes, correct. So it's from Monday next week, so from the 10th, yes.
Excellent. Well, we'll be interested to hear back from you about not just the MCP initiative with WASPA, though it would be interesting to hear what the wider market there thinks of that as an initiative. Um,
Yeah,
Obviously,
and
positive,
what I
but
personally hope, and what I hope to evangelize a bit as we all head to Barcelona at the beginning of
hmm,
next year. The dates for Telemedia Barcelona being the 1st and 2nd of March 2026 is to then take some of the conversations I'll be having with the MNOs in South Africa now down in Cape Town in November, with WASPA down in Cape Town in November, take some of that learnings and bring that back up to the Northern Hemisphere to Barcelona and
hmm.
share that with either, interested local self-regulatory bodies that already exist in the European space, the Dutch, the French, etc. Or MNOs that would be keen to look at what's being done down in South Africa in terms of securing that market. So I think the timing is nice.
Yeah, it's perfect timing, and it is a good sort of setup for our event in Barcelona that obviously takes place around Mobile World Congress. So
Right, right.
all of you operators that are there to get across to the Telemedia event to talk through these things. I think South Africa is such an interesting market, and its self-regulatory model has been a success. It's one of the world's sort of longest running, I think, self-regulatory sort of setups for the sort of kind of premium services market. And I think there's a lot we can learn from that. And I think with this deal with MCP is probably the first of many, I would speculate. But yes, so well, much to look forward to. Hopefully we'll get you back on once you've returned from the festival of Africa
I'm sure
to hear
Joel.
all about like some of the other sort of technological developments that are happening out there. Because I think there's a lot that all markets can learn from the sort of way the African market has sort of begun to leapfrog more established markets, as often happens with telecoms.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things we can pick up from there. So yeah, look forward to hearing more about that.
awesome.
Excellent. Well, Anzelle, thank you very much for joining us and for taking part in that. Thank you for doing such diligent research into agentic commerce. I've actually learnt some things rather than sitting here pontificating about them. So that's most welcome.
You're very welcome.
And yes, as Anzelle says, she will be down in Cape Town next week. So do, if you're in the area, go and find her and talk to her. And like I say, we'll get you back on afterwards to hear some of the key findings and highlights from that. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you and goodbye.